Happy Tuesday, everybody. We are live. You are live with the Fantasy Football Buzz podcast. With me tonight, we've got 2020 taking a primo position next to the Commish tonight. We will have Cyclops join us in a few because we are getting ready to talk about waivers for week 6. Can you believe it's week 6 already, Keith?
Unbelievable. And, we were talking about this in a little group text last night. The and fantasy is always amazing, and we coming in right now. The prime time games, the Thursday nights, the Sunday nights, the Monday nights. It seems like every one of them has been unbelievable. Last night was incredible. It's been really fun football. It's made for a lot of exciting fantasy football. We had some interesting games going on in our league, and a couple other leagues as well. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and talk some fantasy football.
Yeah, I was perusing Twitter as I normally do, and it is amazing how many people. Hey, look, it's Cyclops rocking it tonight. It is amazing how many people won or lost big because of last night. And we don't have to get into the individual stories unless somebody out there wants to give us a call at 772-800-BUZZ or a comment in YouTube Live or Facebook Live and let us know your story about what happened last night. We won't go into the details. All I know is that, I will say this without going into too many details. In 2 of the leagues that I'm in, I was down by more than 40 points. And in both leagues, I won because of last night. And it is unbelievable. My son was down actually 70 points, and he had Taylor and Andrews, and he won. So,
yeah, how amazing is that? Like the amount of I was doing the same thing. I was watching whether it was on Facebook or just stories out there or listening to radio. It's like, yeah, I was down by this much, and I know you were down by 40, and some people were down by 70 and 80, but it wasn't just one player, right? It wasn't just Lamar Jackson. It was Lamar Jackson. It was Andrews. It was Marquise Brown. It was Taylor. It was. I don't think anybody started Wentz, but if it was Wentz, or there was so many things that skewed games last night. It was unbelievable.
And that's, one of the first things I look at when I look at my roster, the matchups for the coming week is how many players do I have playing on Monday night?
Right.
Because I want to watch that game. I want it to come down to Monday night. Look, I don't want to be the guy that's up or down by so much on Sunday to where Sunday night and Monday night games don't matter. I want them to matter one way or another. So, and you know what? Primetime hasn't disappointed. So it's been exciting. Kenneth, we've got you on the phone. How are you doing tonight?
Pretty good. I'm 3-2. I just lost my last game by
so did 2020.
Pretty considerable margin.
Oh, were you playing against any of the people from last night?
I'm not hearing it so well.
Sunday night game.
Yeah, he played in the Sunday night game. All right. Do you have a question for us tonight?
As far as my question of the night, I wanted to get y'all's take in regards to this situation regarding John Gruden.
Wow, that's a heavy one, right?
Well, it's a heavy one, but it's an important one. To the extent that the word just came out that Tampa Bay has removed his name from the Ring of Honor. So, do I believe that it was well-founded? Absolutely. You have 7 years of misogyny and racism, and, there's more that's going to come out, too, as the NFL continues to investigate the Washington football team, and that's where they're getting these emails from, right?
From what I've heard, they're requesting that all the emails from the Washington football team be released.
Yeah, so it's very interesting, and I think it's about time we start riding the ship, and especially when Gruden is the coach of the only open gay player in the NFL, for him to turn around and be that coach who was using derogatory terms and homophobic terms, he's not in the right place. And,
I did put in claims for Devontae Booker and Jacoby Myers.
Can you guys hear me?
Now I can, yeah. What was that last question?
Okay.
Night, because he's definitely an option. So
the reason why I asked about Myers is with Juju out, I needed someone that I could put in his place.
Well, stay late in the show because we are going to go through our waiver wire pickups, and Cyclops is going to talk about wide receivers and tight ends. Commish is going to do quarterbacks. I'm going to do running backs, and we are going to cover. There's some really good wideouts out there, so we are going to get into that with a frenzy tonight.
Yeah, so definitely keep listening, Kenneth. I know you do every Tuesday and Sunday, and we appreciate it. If you have any other questions, you let us know.
All right, man.
All right, thank you. And like Kenneth, if anybody out there has any fantasy football questions, it's going to be waiver night for most leagues. So you want to know who to pick up, who to drop. Who is it? Is it about time to start dropping some of these guys that you've been holding on to your roster? I'll give you one example. Myles Gaskin. We'll talk about him later. But Myles Gaskin's been sitting on my roster, and probably a lot of other people's roster as well. And it would have been an easy drop for me had he done nothing this past week. But he did well this past week. So what does that mean? So we'll
against a really good front seven on top of it, which is so weird. One of the best front sevens in football. Yeah,
right. And we'll talk about that. But first, guys, let's jump into our waiver wire, and we'll talk about running backs first. Keith, who's out? We know who's out there, right? Give us a little more detail, clarity out of these guys. Who's the one to target, and how much are we going to spend for those running backs?
Yeah, I like doing that as well. I like talking about fab money versus just go after these guys and who to take the most seriously. So let me get out of that. So obviously, I think probably the most sought after guy right now is going to be Daryl Williams. Everyone knows Clyde Edwards-Helaire, or if you don't know, was put on the injured reserve. Let me tell you what I like about Daryl Williams. Helaire wasn't getting the catches. Darrell Williams was. So now with Helaire down, what I think is going to happen, yes, they do have Jerick McKinnon there, but they really like Darrell Williams. When he came in and he had 5 rushes for 27 yards when Helaire went down, which is a very nice 5-yard per carry average. But what I like as well is he had 5 targets, only 3 grabs for 18 yards. But over the last couple of weeks, not a ton of targets. Mahomes really isn't a check down quarterback. But I think what's happening right now with Kansas City is getting a little flustered because Pat Mahomes has always been the kind of guy with a flick of a wrist can throw the ball downfield to Tyreek Hill for 60 yards. I think what you're going to start seeing to them getting back on their winning ways is a little more of a short passing game. And I think Darrell Williams is going to be a big part of that. So there's a lot out there right now, running back wise. And I do like Darrell Williams to be very possibly a 3-down back in this backfield while Clyde Edwards-Helaire is hurt. I think it is Darrell. Yes, excuse me.
Brad, all right. So what do you spend on him? What do you spend on him? Because we know you don't have a lot. You personally don't have a lot left because you spent a lot on Mitchell.
I still have $30-40 left, thank you. And I'm in 7 leagues, by the way. So I have anyway. But yes, depending upon if you're a Clyde Edwards-Helaire owner, and this was your RB2, and you're in $100 fab money look, everything depends on. Do you have another running back to put in there? But honestly,
what do you spend
this
on
is a guy. What do you spend on him? Because we're looking. I would say about $20, $23, $24, $25. When you look at right, when you talk about how long you're going to get him, it's at least 3 weeks, and he's getting a lot of play anyway.
Any time you lose a number 1 running back, Barkley, Hilaire, any of these guys, especially coming into bye weeks, right?
Yeah.
Because now you've lost maybe your number 1 or 2 running back, and then you're going to have a bye week and somebody else is on bye. Then you're already getting deeper into your roster, so you need to maybe spend more to try to get someone to fill in those weeks. Because we're in the we're only in week 6, but all of a sudden we come into the middle part of the games
season.
And you
right
of your fantasy season, and it's when you're going to make a run for it or whatever happens. So you really need to
we're really
focus
getting
on that.
into the most important part of the season. This is the point where when you're 1-4, 2-3, if you don't start putting together 3, 4, 5 wins over the next 3-4 games, you're not going to make the playoffs. Your chances are getting really low. It's almost like those 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds. These next 3-4 weeks are critical. So this is where you spend some fab money to get it. So anyway, yes, I would look at $23 to $25 depending upon your fab budget and depending upon your need.
Right.
So that's Darrell Williams. Now, there's debate here to me, or for me. I'm up and back between, in order of the next 2. Both of these guys should be picked up, between Khalil Herbert and Devontae Booker. Now, Booker, I really liked Herbert. He looked very good in the preseason, and I picked him up in 3 leagues last week. First of all, Damien Williams was a little injured. They weren't sure if he was going to play. But even so, even with a healthy Damien Williams, Herbert had 18 carries for 75 yards, didn't get a score. But Damien Williams had 16 carries for 64 yards. He did get the touchdown. But I really, really like Herbert. He also had 3 catches for 20 yards, or 2 catches on 3 targets. So I really do like Khalil Herbert. To me, I think he's the better, stronger back. Damien Williams has a little more experience with pass blocking, but they're both going to be dangerous. And this is a team that's having a hard time moving the ball. So it's going to be very –
Okay.
I kind of want to get into this for a second, because you had mentioned Khalil Herbert last week. Good call, right? Because he did look really good when they put him in there. He actually looked better than Williams. But to me, there are 2 major issues. Number 1, it's still a running back by committee. So until Herbert becomes that number 1 guy, the question is, are you spending a lot of money on him? And then before you answer that, the second part of it is you've got to look at who they're replacing and for how long. So in this case, right, these guys are replacing somebody who's going to be out for a while. Whereas
4 or 5, 6 weeks, right?
Whereas with the Giants, if you were to pick up Devontae Booker, you're going to get somebody who's not necessarily going to share the backfield, but they're not going to be in as long or for as many weeks as maybe Herbert/Williams, right?
Yeah, same thing with Hilaire.
Right, Hilaire's going to be out for a little while,
but they're saying it's not as bad as they thought.
And this is why
I on IR, so you have him for at least 3 weeks.
3 weeks, right?
At least 3 weeks, and this is why I think the opportunity is going to be more with Booker, because I don't think he's going to be spelling or being spelled by anyone, where Herbert's going to be in a true split. But I like that you're going to get Herbert for 4 weeks, and he is available. I mean, Herbert is only rostered in 8.2% of leagues because people didn't jump on him last week, like we were talking about on our show. So he's out there, and you're talking about someone. And yes, it's a running back by committee, but look at Chubb and Hunt. And, this is a run-first team right now. So I do like that with a good defense that's going to keep them in games, allowing them to run.
There's a very interesting stat on this, that Kansas City, their backfield, which is slowly becoming a running back by committee even before
the injury.
Hilaire got hurt, right? No running back for Kansas City this season had more than 42% of the offensive snaps before the injury. So
it's amazing.
And Williams is actually graded out better than Hilaire. So it's very possible that if Williams does well, we're going to see more Williams and less Hilaire, even when Hilaire is healthy. We can't just assume that he's going to take that backfield back.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why I have Williams first then Khalil Herbert, and then Devontae Booker, based on what you're going to see for the rest of the season and the impact they're going to have. Exactly.
We do have a couple quick questions here. We do have a couple quick questions from Kenneth. You putting that up?
I got it.
You got it. Okay. With Cordell Patterson on bye, should I keep him on my roster or should I drop him?
Oh my God, you can't drop him.
You don't drop him, but you can use him as trade bait. But no, because after this week is done, he's back to being more or less the number one target in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But I honestly, I would look to trade him at this point. He's not going to be worth more, I think, than he is at this point right now.
Right.
Especially if Ridley comes back, they'll have less touches for him. I think at this point, if you can get really good value for him, trade him. Otherwise, keep him. Do not drop him.
100%.
Right.
And he also said he lost Barkley, and I lost Barkley as well. Should I stash him or on reserve or drop him?
No, definitely stash him. He's not going to be out that long. Yeah, you can't if you have an IR spot.
It's not nothing torn. It's not a knee. It is an ankle sprain essentially, but a bad one. Did you see the picture of his ankle? It was like a grapefruit, but it was a freak injury too. That's why I think he was even more upset about it. You could see his frustration on the field.
Absolutely. Okay, so. And he really is becoming almost as injury prone as George Kittle. So if you have any questions like Kenneth did, you can give us a call at 772-800-BUZZ or 2899, or you can ask your questions in the comments section of YouTube Live or Facebook Live. You can even tweet us right now at FFBuzz Podcast. I'm sorry, at FFBuzz Podcast or at @start_bench, and we will answer your questions. Are we done with running backs?
Three more. Nope, there's actually three more out there. We briefly talked about Devontae Booker, but the guy looked good. He had 16 carries, 42 yards and a touch, 4 targets, three grabs, and another touchdown there. So I like him. Again, it's not going to be a long play, but he's out there. I wouldn't go crazy, $12, $15, $16 to get a good maybe start or two out of him. I also like the schedule's not great. It's Rams and Carolina. So it's a tough schedule sledding for him, but he's out there. Another guy to look at is Samaji Piran, because even with Mixon back, he's not 100%. I think we saw that, but Samaji had 11 carries for 59 yards, but he also had 5 targets on 4 grabs for 24 yards and a touchdown. So while Mixon is getting a little better, if you're struggling and you miss on – look, I have him back here towards the end. If you miss on getting all these other guys and you want to spend, a few bucks, $6, $7, $8, $9 fab money, he is available in 44.9%, almost 45% of leagues. And there's one last guy if you miss on all of these guys, because there's news out right now that Damian Harris is a little banged up. They don't know yet what the deal is. It's something to watch and something to monitor. And they have a really nice rookie who finally got out of Belichick's doghouse, and that is, and I am going to pronounce this right, Ramondre Stevenson, who's literally rostered nowhere in 7% of leagues. He hasn't torn it up. He had 11 carries for 23 yards with a nice long run of 9, but he had 11 carries, and that to me is interesting. New England has a good offensive line. They love to run the ball. If you swing on this on everyone else, you can spend a couple bucks and get Ramondre Stevenson.
All right, so what's your list? Go through you've got Williams. What's your list?
In order, it was Williams, Khalil Herbert, Devontae Booker, Samaji Piran, and then Ramondre Stevenson.
All right, so I have one that I want. That I'm shocked. I am really beside myself, shocked that you didn't mention, which is Jeff Wilson Jr. So he's coming off of IR, or he was on the PUP list, right? And out of all of the running backs that San Francisco has, Jeff Wilson has proven to be extremely successful in the backfield when he's healthy. So is it possible that Jeff Wilson Jr. is going to do better than Elijah Mitchell, than Trey Sermon? He's going to come off PUP. Once he gets acclimated, remember, they've got a bye this week. So if you're going to get him, now's the time to get him. And then see what happens from there.
Yeah, you're right. When Mostert was injured last year, Wilson was the first guy to get the rock before McKinnon and what have you. But that was before they had Mitchell. And look, nobody knows. There's no crystal ball here. He's out there. You can grab him. JaMychal Hasty is actually about to come off the PUP list as well. So now you're going to have a four-headed backfield with Mitchell, Sermon, Wilson, and Hasty.
It's gonna be a mess.
And nobody knows, and no one can tell you that they know. Especially, look, we're dealing with a Shanahan, so we don't know. My personal belief, again, I believe Mitchell is going to continue to tote the rock, even with Wilson back, and get the majority of it. I think they really like him. I think they like how he pass blocks. So I still see Eli Mitchell. And this last week it wasn't a great showing. That wasn't his fault. Actually, he looked good. He had some nice 8-9 chunk yard runs. I saw it. But Trey Lance was just murdering it. It was a tough, really tough game.
Okay. We have a bunch of questions coming in, so why don't we get to them? Let's see. First, Kenneth again. Would it be wise to start Dak versus New England or Teddy versus Las Vegas?
We start Dak.
I mean,
you always go with Dak. Dak is a starter no matter who he plays every week, even if they play Buffalo. 100%. So, that's not a question.
Okay. Next is from Max. Chris Godwin or Adam Thielen for week 7? I know Godwin plays on Thursday night. In front of me, I do not have who Thielen plays. Minnesota plays. Do you have that? I forget exactly who it is.
I'll pull it up.
But I just like Godwin here.
You know what? Godwin has not really been producing great numbers. They're good. They're like 10 points a week. I think I have them. And I made the decision last week. I think I called you about it, Seth, and was back and forth. And it cost me 6 points. Fortunately, I won the game, but it cost me 6 points.
Yeah.
But Godwin, the week before was like 8 points. This week was 10 points.
Yeah, but
Thielen's not doing anything either.
Thielen's not doing anything. And they're playing against Carolina, which has very good defense. At this point, you got to go with Godwin. That doesn't mean Thielen's not going to get, 20 yards, but two of those are touchdowns.
That's true.
So it's very possible, that he's going to be a red zone threat. But, I think the safer choice is Godwin.
Right. He still had 7 for 70. It wasn't like he didn't have a good game. It's just he's not getting the red zone targets. So he's not getting the touchdowns. Let's keep going on the questions. They're coming in.
That's great.
I got to hold on. I just want to know about this. That's a great name. Bars in the Tuck. I want to know what that means. That's a great name. What is that?
All right. So Bars in the Tuck. Let us know what your team name is or what that name means. Okay. Left field question of the week. My league gives points for return yards. I like that. Should I pick up Jamal Agnew since he's getting targets now?
As opposed to who do you have that?
Right. So you're getting the return yards for that player that you have. So if who returns punts, Cooper Kupp, you have him. You're also getting the return yards. Is that what I'm understanding?
The problem is with Agnew. Our team's punting a lot to Jacksonville, right? So how, and I don't have this, I haven't gotten so deep into the stats where I know how many times has Jacksonville stopped a team where they've had to punt. I know that, this coming weekend in London against Miami, Miami will do a good enough job stopping themselves. So there will be plenty of punts on that, but I don't know who you're replacing instead of Agnew, but
he put down here that he has a free spot with CEH on IR right now.
Right. So, but it's not even about replacing that. It's also with when you're getting return yards, it's never the same equation, 10 yards a point. It's usually much, much less. And the question is, are you going to get enough return out of the return yards you're going to get from Agnew to compromise not putting a real wide receiver in there when you would get 10 yards a point and possibly a touchdown? There's got to be better receivers possibly you can play based on what you're going to get return yards out of him because he's not a part of that passing game.
I don't know if Felton from Cleveland is available because he's a guy who's getting both, the running back receptions.
Well,
he's returning.
So he actually, another comment down here, he said, yes, that's how it works in their league. So guys like Cordell Patterson are gods in that league because they're getting the return yards and they're a monster, right? Like
what about Jalen Waddle with Miami, right? He's getting monster targets. And he's now without Grant. He's returning things. So I like Felton. Wow. I like Waddle. I like Chester Rogers, right, with Tennessee. Now that we don't know what's happening and which receivers are going to play on a given week. And then, I don't think Grant had any targets as a receiver for Chicago, but he is returning. Punts for the Bears. So
that's interesting when you're drafting like a receiver or somebody like that's getting return yards that much more valuable, right? And it's a full PPR,
much more.
Another guy, if he's available, and he's somebody that is available in a lot of leagues right now that you might even be talking about him in your wide receiver pickups, is Rondale Moore.
Renfro.
A lot of people had picked up Rondale Moore with Arizona and dropped him. If he happens to be available, there's a gem right there.
Right.
But
I think Renfro returns kicks too sometimes, doesn't he? That might be interesting.
I believe so.
But he's probably if your league is like that, he can't be available. There's no way. Yeah.
So
right.
So all these people were saying there's a lot of people before Agnew that we would recommend, but I just don't know who's available in your league.
Right. Okay. A couple more questions. We'll go to Brad Montgomery, and then we'll come back to a few more from Kenneth. I have Fant and Schultz. Interesting. So do I. Should I trade one and Fournette for Darrell Henderson?
Well, Fournette, we have to forget everything we thought about Fournette coming into the season, don't we? I mean, has he? Yeah. It's been 5 weeks. Hasn't he proven himself to be the number one guy? And to do not just be the number one guy, but to do very well.
Let me ask you a question. I'm sorry. If you knew Henderson was healthy, wouldn't you rather have Henderson? Like if he is this looking, he looks good.
Yeah,
he looks really good.
Yeah, and I think and right now is a good time to buy Henderson. So I agree. I think Henderson's only going to get better
if he stays healthy. I think.
But I agree with you.
The long term is more valuable with Henderson.
Yes.
But my point is,
you're right. We have to forget what we know about that backfield. You're right.
But my point is this: I think you should be getting more for Fournette with either Fant or Schultz, rather than just a straight trade for Henderson.
At this point, are Fournette and Henderson, they're like even, right? If I had a guess, I'm not local tonight, so I only have the one screen, so I'm not able to look up a lot of stuff.
I'll take a look.
So I have Fournette in actually in our Dynasty League, and he's putting up decent numbers. He's definitely getting all the love, but he's not scoring a lot. And Henderson,
he only has one touchdown.
Yeah.
He's got 63 fantasy points, but one touchdown and 56 carries.
So and Henderson is the guy, and he lost the red zone, tug to Michelle, but I'm not worried about that
Michelle
being
the other day, right?
So Henderson has about the same amount of carries. Same amount of carries. He has only 3 touchdowns and about the same amount of points. They are very even.
Yeah.
So we have to look at rest of season
with one less game.
Correct.
Right. So with rest of season, I like Henderson better than Fournette just because who knows what's going to happen with the Bucs and if they're going to put Rojo in to spell him as the season goes on. He is older than Henderson, but.
Fournette's only like 25 years old.
Yeah, but he carried the ball in Jacksonville like 100 times a game, and he's probably just so worn out. But the all I'm saying is, yes, make that trade. But I would see if you can get a throw-in wide receiver 3, borderline 2, maybe, something like that. Try to get something else along with it. But if they say no, I probably still would pull the trigger. I would, if he has to let go of one of those tight ends guys, are you letting go of Fant or are you letting go of Schultz?
at this point, so
Fant.
I have both, and I've tried to use them in trades. It hasn't, no trades have worked out yet, but I'm probably trading Fant at this point. Schultz has been a little much more steady over the past few weeks, and Fant is like going to, last week he had 3.5 points. They had a tough week last week.
Yeah.
So I
That
just think the
offense hasn't gelled
consistency.
yet.
Yeah, I just think the consistency of
Right.
Schultz at this point is the one to keep. 2020 made a good point. Henderson has one less game, so the same amount of points, but he missed a game due to injuries, so his value is a little bit higher. I think this would be a good trade if you do Fant and Fournette for Henderson. That would be.
Yep, I like it.
That would, yeah.
All right, sounds good. Okay, what else do we have here? We have a question.
We have another one from Kenneth, Minnesota. Oh wait, he said Minnesota.
Would Heineke be worth a look at this? I do have Dak as my starter and Teddy as my backup. No, don't waste your time. Heineke is a streamer if you have to, but
Dak. Dak is one of those top X amount of players, 20 players that you play no matter what the matchup. Like Patrick Mahomes, you might play in the best defense in the league and you start him.
Right.
Or, any of these. So you go with, at Dak, you go with your guy. Heineke, I saw something very interesting just a little while ago on him, that there was a week that there was a run of 37 yards and his stats are not showing it. And now they're adding them in. And they thought it was like the kicker, but it was Heineke who.
I'll have to look into that. That's very interesting.
I thought I just saw it come across. Not a lot of people are probably starting Heineke as their starting quarterback, but 37-yard run could change.
Hell
again,
yeah.
Right? But I know in a lot of leagues,
3.7 points, yeah.
Once Wednesday comes, and I don't know if it was this past week or another week, so I'm not exactly sure because I only caught a second of it. But it might be something interesting to look into. I know, not that I've started him, but I lost 1 week by point. Go ahead, Seth.
No, I was just going to move on. But yeah, you're right.
Okay.
You could lose. Right. We've all lost by, very little.
Yeah.
So it's very possible that makes a difference.
I'm so excited to post this question. So Matt.
Yeah, it's the Vampire League is back.
League. And he won again. I love this. So check this out.
Nice job, Matt.
So this is very cool. Who would he get? And to me, there's no question. Oh, actually, there is a question.
Yeah.
Eckler, DJ Moore, or Chubb. Now, DJ Moore has been phenomenal, but Eckler is the number 2 running back in football. And the big question with him is if he could stay healthy, man, he looks good. I personally.
Who does Las Vegas? Do they play
the Chargers? It almost doesn't matter. He's just looked so good.
No, I know. Well, but who does Chubb play?
Right now, what I'm hearing is that there are people trying to sell Chubb now, right? They want out. Chubb is good, but he's sharing too much with Hunt. He's going to get you.
So Chubb is like the number 4 running back, and Hunt is like number 6.
Yeah.
Right.
It's amazing that.
So here's Eckler's schedule coming up. Actually, Eckler has some tough sledding right now. He's at Baltimore, then he has a bye, then he's at home against New England, it softens a little bit, Philly and Minnesota. But I'll tell you what, you want to talk about a Super Bowl run. In weeks 14, 15, and 16, Eckler gets the Giants, KC, and Houston. I mean, what a way to run towards your championship for the playoffs. I don't know where you guys sit on
the Vampire League. You got to go this week. That's it, right?
Right. Then but he keeps them. No, but he takes it this week, but he gets them for the rest of the season.
That's right. But right.
Yeah, whenever you play a team
get to steal,
and you beat them, you can grab whatever player you want. Right. So for me, I don't know how it's hard to not take. I agree with Commish. I have Chubb in 2 leagues. I have Hunt in another. Loving them both. It always scares me because it's true. They're both equaling it out, and Chubb's still producing. Eckler to me is too hard to lay off of.
I'm going Eckler in my opinion. We're all going Eckler here.
All right, it's a consensus. Yeah. You got to go with that. And then I want to do a Vampire League next year for sure.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Yes,
all right, Kenneth, I put a trade offer for Fournette for Patterson. Would that be fair? No, I would hold on to Patterson right now. I mean, I don't know who your other running backs are. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you get Fournette for Patterson?
I agree.
I mean, I stay with Patterson, or I stick with Patterson. He's getting catches. He's getting runs. He's just so involved in that offense right now and looks good doing it.
Yeah.
My biggest problem is not trusting Fournette. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe this is just because of the past, but it's hard for me to trust a guy. He's only carried the ball more than 13 times once this season. So, it's hard for me to trust that. That's all.
What does that mean? Yeah. Hey guys, my bad. Rewatching the answer you gave.
He didn't hear what we said. We all.
Got you.
Yeah, we all unanimously agreed Eckler.
Eckler.
Too hard to pass up on him. Yeah. You know what's interesting about Patterson? In some leagues I've seen he has the RB and wide receiver designation. So what a nice bonus you can drop him in for wide receiver. And that's like getting a running back there, which is obviously huge when you're able to do it. So, Patterson is a lot of value.
Running back now, isn't he?
Speaking of wide receivers,
Yahoo.
Speaking of wide receivers, let's continue with our waivers.
All right, I'm gonna make it quick. Wide receivers is a little less complicated than running backs this week, from what I see. But obviously, the number one guy people are going to be going after is Cadarius Tony, right? This is pretty obvious. The last 2 weeks, he's got 22 targets. He's 16 for 260. What he's not getting is the touchdowns, right? So now you have a guy who's getting a lot of points and a lot of catches. Right, well, nobody is. And what's the deal with Danny Dimes, right? Is he, because he had the concussion?
Oh, my God. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And
diving for the goal line? Yeah.
No, but him trying to stand up afterwards.
Yeah, he was like, well, yeah. So is that going to be a few weeks? Is that going to be not at all? He's in concussion protocol, so we don't know. But this guy, they knew coming out he could be a star. And now they're getting him involved. And a lot of it is by have to, because all their other receivers are hurt, right? He's the only guy there at this point. So pick him up. Another guy that I like, he's available in a lot of leagues. Now, he came up before. We were just talking about him. But Hunter Renfrow, he's not owned in a lot of leagues. He's going to be that guy. We're coming into bye week. So if you're looking for someone that's going to get 10 to 12 points and have an upside, if you get a touchdown, maybe you're getting into that 15 to 18 point range. Well, he's your guy. I mean, he's averaging just around 10 points a week. He is, last week he had 6 for 75. He had 4 for 32, but he had a touchdown each week. So that puts his value up. So, that's one guy that I like for bye week pickups. The other guy is Tim Patrick. He's kind of the hidden guy at the moment, and he's available in some leagues, but not in a lot of leagues. Or he's not owned in a lot of leagues. So, again, he's 7 for 89. He has 4 weeks out of 5 averaging around 12 fantasy points. So he's another guy that is going to get you that 10 to 12 points. And if he gets into the end zone, he's going to give you 18, right? So you get a little bit of a bump with him. But at this point, I think you're looking at a lot of wide receivers as bye week pickups. So that's where I'm going with these guys. So those are my 3 wide receivers that I picked out for this week, that if you can pick them up and need, fill-in guys, those, the good guys. Now, Tony could be a long-term play here, but the other 2 are pretty consistent.
Actually, here's an interesting question. Over the last 2 weeks, just the last 2 weeks, which wide receiver has the most yards after catch in the league?
Antonio Brown.
And
which wide receiver?
Brad just said it. Cadarius Tony.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So, Matt, it says Eckler seems to be the popular answer. Does your answer change if I have Dalvin Cook? Are you only allowed to start one running back? The thing with Eckler is he's protection for you. So a vampire league, if you lose and someone scavenges your team,
right?
If they take Cook or Eckler, you still have one of them there.
No, he's the vampire. He's the only one that can take someone.
I understand, but
So-
next week, if he
Right.
plays somebody and loses, can't they take from him?
Is it the
No,
team you play
from
each
the
week
way I
or one
understand it-
team? I'm not sure. Is it one team
The way
a
he,
week that
the
gets
way
to
he,
steal a
the
player?
way he, no, the way he explained it, he's the vampire. There's only one vampire in the league that year, if I understand this correctly. And every time he plays a team,
Oh.
if he wins, he can vulture anyone he wants. If he loses, he just loses.
Oh, right.
Nobody can take anything from
Because
him.
the vampire team is a team. You don't
So
get
he
to
never
draft. You
loses.
draft after.
He
right?
doesn't draft, right? So he never loses players. He
Right,
only
right,
gains.
right. Yes. He says he keeps players win or lose. He only takes from
Right,
people
exactly.
when he wins.
So what's the negative of taking
Yeah,
both
'cause
Cook
he is-
and Eckler?
right.
I mean, if you
yeah,
can play them
It's
both.
beautiful to have them both.
All right. Well, Brad, thanks for the wide receiver information. What I want to do is get into quarterbacks real quick. There's not a lot out there. Actually, the two that I'm going to talk about right now are not streams. These are not guys you're going to pick up because of bye weeks. These are
Right.
guys that you're going to pick up because you're trying to steal them before somebody else does in the event they start doing better. And the two quarterbacks that I want to talk about very quickly is Jameis Winston and Matt Ryan. So Jameis Winston, a lot of people, they drafted him or they picked him up quickly because he had such a great preseason and it looked like he was just slinging the ball everywhere. Then he comes into the NFL during this season and has one good game and that's it. But then last week, he puts up a season-high 279 yards and 4 touchdowns against Washington. So,
Right.
if they're on bye next week. So picking him up for next week isn't going to work for you. But if you pick him up now, when somebody needs somebody in 2 weeks, you've got him. Same thing with Matt Ryan. He seems to be the past few years to be on the waiver wire, and then somebody will stream him and pick him up and do very well with him because the ceiling is very high with him. 342 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that all day.
And that's without Ridley.
That's without Ridley
and Gage.
Without Gage against the Jets defense that 2020 thinks is the best in the league. And quite frankly,
that's what I said. Right. They're the best in the league. You should drop Dalvin Cook and go get the Jets right now.
Stop working.
But again, the Falcons do not play this week. So if you're picking up for streaming, it's not going to work for you. The final one, which I don't feel good about it. It was one thing to talk about picking up Sam Darnold because that was actually proven to be good. But to say you should pick up Geno Smith is very scary, right? We know Russell Wilson.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I'm talking about streaming.
Don't do it.
Hold on. If you're in a 2-quarterback league, right, and you are looking for somebody to stream this week, you're going into an offense that is made to score, right? So we saw Geno Smith the first time playing in years. He comes in 10 of 17, 131 and a touchdown, and he was throwing the ball. He looked better than he had for his entire career. And yes, he threw the interception on his third drive.
Yeah, that wasn't even his fault.
Yeah, but you know what?
Lockett fell.
Yeah.
But you've got DK, you've got Lockett. I find it difficult to not pick up Geno if you need somebody. So if you happen to stream somebody, you could grab them.
If you're going deep into leagues, now keep in mind that offense. Russell Wilson wasn't really having a spectacular Russell Wilson type year.
But he was getting points. It wasn't like
yes. But now that Geno Smith has a week to think about playing football, does that go downhill a little bit? He kind of
you know what I'm thinking. That's funny.
Right. He kind of came in. It was like, you're in the moment. You start throwing,
Look,
now
I'm not picking him up.
Exactly.
I'm not picking him up. I'm just saying if you need to stream somebody, you could do worse. Let's put it that way.
Okay, so let me ask you a question.
So
would you rather stream Carson Wentz at this, coming up?
Yes.
Or,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I was surprised that he was not on your list.
I'd rather stream Heineke than Geno Smith, actually. But yes, I love Carson Wentz right now. He's a guy that's not a streamer. He might actually be a legit fantasy football quarterback right now. Carson Wentz with what we've been seeing.
The problem with Wentz is that he's
did.
up and down. You just don't know which Carson Wentz you're going to get, and it also depends on which defense he's playing against.
Yeah,
so
keep in mind he didn't have
and he's going to get injured at some point.
Well, that's true. He didn't have a preseason. You know, this is like he already had his preseason games, and all of a sudden, the past couple of weeks, he's looked really good.
Yeah, and keep in mind though, and I know you can say this for a lot of quarterbacks, but 76 of those yards that he got, the 400 yards that he got, came on one play to Taylor.
So what?
I'm just saying. I'm not saying that. Don't.
How many other quarterbacks?
I'm
50,
just saying.
50 of Roethlisberger's yards came on one pass to.
Yeah, and
same thing with Jameis Winston
in 99% of the leagues right now.
It was just an example.
Okay. All right. So we've gone through the waivers quickly. It looks like we have another question here. Okay. So Kenneth says, I take a look at Carr last week, was his off week, and I figure he'll definitely find a way to bounce back. Yes.
I would imagine. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm not dropping Carr unless I'm looking for a flyer like Winston, like Matt Ryan. Not even Matt Ryan. I think Carr just had an off week, and he's going to be fine.
And Carr should be already owned in a lot lot of leagues.
Right. There's no reason to drop him at this point.
Based on his first few weeks.
Here's a question about quarterbacks. Are we starting to worry about Kyler Murray? What's going on there? This guy was the #1 fantasy quarterback for the first 2 weeks. But what's been going on? It's been for 3 weeks now. It's been very subpar.
Yeah, fantasy wise,
I get that. We're not talking NFL. We're talking fantasy football. Kyler Murray, people are losing games on one of them because of him right now.
He had he had a bad week last week. Okay, so let's take that away. But the other 4 games, he never scored less than 22 points. You get 22 points out of your quarterback, you're doing okay. If you get a lot more, then of course you're doing even better.
Right.
But I'm not worried at all. In fact, if you have him and want to trade him, I'm all ears.
You already have Jackson. Easy.
Well,
easy
I'm just looking in the last 3 weeks, 13, 22, 20.
Yeah, so
it's just that his numbers have been declining. He went
what he did
316.
He tempted you with that really good looking pizza, and you go to take a bite and you realize it's frozen. So yeah, the first few weeks were great, and then it went downhill, but not downhill to the point where there's nobody. Who would you want instead? Who are you trading Kyler Murray for? Which quarterback? Josh Allen?
No, I agree. I'm just saying,
who are you trading him for?
Right.
I wouldn't worry about
Josh Allen.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to jump into a new segment that we're calling For Real or Poser. It's now been 5 weeks that we've seen players, and we can no longer say, well, let's just wait and see, right? 2020, you had mentioned earlier, now's the time, right? You have to start making those decisions right now. The rubber is hitting the road. So we're going to go down a list of players, and we're going to talk about whether or not they are for real or just a poser. First one, downtown Hollywood Brown. We saw what he did last night. Is he for real, Keith, or is he just a poser?
He is for real. This is the first year that this guy has really been consistently fantasy relevant. And I have his numbers here, and I got to tell you, he looks absolutely phenomenal. He's running great routes. He's getting open. He's making all the catches. And what I love about him is he's getting the targets as well. So I love his numbers. Over the last 3 weeks, actually over the last 4 weeks, the guy's been targeted 33 times. He has 4 touchdowns. He's had 1 week under 19 points. And Lamar Jackson is starting to really throw the ball. So I think he is for real. He is here to stay. He's fantasy relevant. If you can get him somehow and you got someone to trade, grab him because I like him.
I agree.
Really
you agree, Brad?
I 100% agree. And he was taken late in a lot of drafts. Like he was kind of the forgotten guy.
He was.
Yeah.
All right. One for you, Brad. Sam Darnold, is he for real or is he just a poser?
I am going with Mr. Sam Darnold as he is for real. He's had 4 good weeks, 1 subpar week. I think it's more of a aberration, not a long term. So I am going with he's for real. He for weeks 2, 3, and 4, he had over 300 yards each week. I just think it was a tough game, and he has coming up 2 of his next 3 games, the Giants and Atlanta. So a lot of opportunity for points. If you need him as a streamer, maybe as your backup quarterback, whatever it is, or you can pick him up off waivers, get him for the next few weeks as you have buys coming up.
And do you feel comfortable starting him as your wide receiver
extremely
number 1?
As my quarterback number 1?
I'm sorry, yeah.
Quarterback
sorry.
1?
As your quarterback number 1. In other words, are there less than 10 better quarterbacks right now?
I think he's probably in that like 12 to 14 range as quarterback. I don't feel, in a 10-man league, I don't. In a 14-man league, I would. In a 12, team league, he's right on that cusp. That's my take on him at the moment. Now with a couple quarterbacks getting injured, he moves up a little. Go ahead.
I'll tell you, there's actually 2 answers there. There's Sam Darnold with Christian McCaffrey, and there's Sam Darnold without Christian McCaffrey. With CMC, I believe he is on the fringe at right around number 10, because he'll put up the yards. He'll dump the ball off to CMC 8, 9, 10 times, and what he does in the open field with that ball, those long yards after catches, those help Darnold's numbers a lot. Chuba Hubbard's a good running back, but he is not the same receiver out of the backfield that McCaffrey is. So okay. I'm sold on Darnold.
You say he's the real deal?
Back, and I love him.
Yeah, I'm going to go with for real as well, but I agree that he is still around the 12 to 14 mark, and until we see McCaffrey back, I agree with you on that 2020. But I do believe he is for real. So the next one, guys, is Myles Gaskin. We mentioned him briefly before. Is he for real or is he a poser? I will grab that one because he's coming off of his best week ever, right? 26.9 points. But let's take a look at how he got those points. He only rushed the ball 5 times for 25 yards, but he caught 10 passes for 74 yards and 2 touchdowns. So even though he was drafted as a high-end RB3 or flex, Miami has just turned into this erratic running back by committee with no rhyme or reason whatsoever as to who they're going to start each week. And they seem to be overthinking the obvious, like every week. Gaskin only has 34 rushes compared to Malcolm Brown, who has 25 rushes. So, but he is tied for second on the team in receptions with 22. And Jalen Waddle leads with 27. So he's only 5 off of the team leader in receptions. But
but how many of those were this one week?
10 of them.
10
of them.
Yeah,
and that's over 5 weeks.
Right. So my point is, it's not sustainable until Miami works out their offensive issues. He is a poser. Do you agree?
I agree. Miami is a team. I agree. Miami has no identity right now. They don't know who they are. They don't know what they're doing. And I think Gaskin on another team would be a very relevant running back. But unfortunately, he's on the Miami Dolphins. So unfortunately, I'm not on board.
I'm gonna go the other way on this, and here's why. So he comes out, he only had 5 rushes, but as we've seen more and more, a lot of relevant running backs are sometimes get more catches than rushes. Okay, so that's not unheard of. But what I'm seeing maybe a little bit is Miami coaching staff is figuring out who to get the ball to make plays. Okay, and if that's happening and you're getting 10 catches, you're in like Christian McCaffrey land there on the catching side. Now, maybe not the skill set and maybe not the rushes as of yet, but if they're seeing that, maybe that will continue. And if for some reason he became available,
was that a game script because nobody can run on Tampa?
Right.
We don't know.
Possible. Yeah.
We don't know. But they were playing from behind. They're playing against a tough line. So who knows? By the way, speaking of running backs, do you know who PFF has rated as their number one running back in the league right now? Anybody care to guess?
Cordell Patterson.
Cordell Patterson is close. He's actually number 2. Derrick Henry is actually number 6 because they're basing it on the metrics of running, receiving, pass blocking, run blocking, like a
whole package.
Whole package.
Right.
The number 1 running back, according to PFF, is Tony Pollard. And
interesting.
What?
Then Cordell Patterson, then Kareem Hunt, then Joe Mixon. Now the 5th one blows me away, Kenneth Gainwell. So so it's very interesting because there's a lot more to a running back than rushing yards, fantasy points. So that's what PFF takes into consideration.
Interesting.
But one guy who's not in that top 10 is James Conner, free agent pickup for the Cardinals. Is he for real, or is every time I turn on the TV he's scoring a touchdown? Is he for real, or is he just a poser?
2020, this is you.
I happen to think he's for real. I mean, he is. I mean, I don't want to believe him. With every bone in my body, I'm trying to not think he's real. But it's a similar Chubb Hunt situation where there's a bit of it's a split field. But listen, he's getting over the last 3 weeks 11 carries, 18 carries, 10 carries, and yes, he's touchdown dependent. We know that. But in the last 3 weeks, he's had 5 touchdowns. This is right now one of the best teams in the NFC. They move the ball like crazy. Kylo Murray has not been rushing them in. They're giving the ball to Connor, and they're moving the ball. So, I mean, 3 weeks in a row, I think he is for real. He is. I really believe it. Tried to not, but he's proven he can do it.
Interesting with that, you take those even 4 of those touchdowns and put them on Murray's numbers, 1 each week, and his numbers go from that 22-point average to 28, right? Now all of a sudden he takes a step up, and so they're giving those touchdowns to Connor. Now Connor was brought in to be the goal line guy. We knew that, right? But he's also getting some other carries. They have to split time with Edmonds. Edmonds isn't the answer. People I think drafted him, and he's been getting points, and he's doing okay, but you just don't ever hear his name, right? He's not doing anything special.
Yeah.
So, I think. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'll let you finish.
No. So as far as for real or a poser, I'm gonna go with for real, just because I think he's gonna get that touchdown a week and another, enough to get to that 12 points, 15 points a week.
Yeah, I'm going to go with poser.
Commish, before you go, I just want to say he's not an RB2. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that's it. Well, that's my point, Keith, is that's why I would call him a poser, because I don't want a poser on my roster. I don't want a scavenger on my roster. DeAndre Hopkins is going to turn things around, right? We're going to see more of the touchdowns going to him. We're going to see the way that Chase Edmonds has been playing has been very impressive. We're going to see more of that. Will Connor still get touchdowns? Absolutely. Will he take over that backfield? No. And until he does, to me, he's just a poser, no fault of his own. Let's go with Mooney. Darrell Mooney.
Commish, you like him as a flex?
No. I mean, it depends who else is available. But as a flex, no. I'm putting somebody in that is more of an RB2 if possible, or a wide receiver 2 before I put in Connor. But again, I'm always wrong.
So here we go with Mooney, right? A couple weeks ago, Mooney was like the hot. What?
No, go ahead.
It was just funny. He said, I'm always wrong.
I didn't hear that. With Mooney, a couple weeks ago, he was right, like the hot pickup, the hot wide receiver pickup. So I went back and I did the research for his numbers for the year, right? Yardage wise, 26, 66, 9, 125, boom, back down to 35, right? He is a poser. Even if he's going to have another big week, maybe a couple, but I think more of his average is going to be in that 30 to 40 a week. Part of that is because of the quarterback play. Part of that is because they want to be a run team to not have to catch up. They want to run the clock. So I think you will see, once in a while you'll see a big game from him, but not the consistency. So for me, he's a poser.
I agree. I'm going poser.
I agree as well. I don't think there's a reliable receiving option on that team. So yes, poser.
Well,
there is, but they don't throw to him.
Speaking of not having reliable people on their team to throw the ball to, let's talk about Cadarius Tony. We already went into his stats. I'm not going to go into all of the stats. But the question is he for real, or is he just a poser based on what happened last week? Remember, no Sterling Shepard, no Darius Slayton, Kenny Galladay goes out. So who else are they throwing to? Kadarius Tony, 189 yards. But this is the thing that impressed me the most. And it seems silly, but I'll tell you where it's leading to. He attempted to throw a pass, and he had a carry inside the 10 on a wildcat snap. So what that is telling me is, look, they went and drafted this guy in the first round knowing that they had no offensive line and that they could have gotten a big offensive lineman to be there for a good 10 years. Instead, they go out, they get Kadarius Tony. Right. And there's a reason why. The guy is a weapon. So the way I look at it, even if Sterling Shepard comes back, Slayton comes back, even if Galladay's healthy, he has definite flex value, even against the Rams. Or even, I should say, especially against the Rams. They drafted him in the first round for a reason, and that reason is not to sit on the bench. He is for real, folks.
All right. I'm going to agree with that based on, you have 5 weeks. The past 2 weeks have been, I went over the numbers before. Even with, those guys are going to come back. They're going to get hurt. They're going to come back. I don't think you'll have all of them there at one time. So, and the more comfortable he gets in the offense and the quarterback gets with him, he will demand those targets. And he's probably better than most of those other receivers, talent-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's
do
I
agree.
Well,
I think
we're gonna do one more. We're gonna do Leviska Chanult, and then we'll end the broadcast after that. But is Chanult for real, or is he just a poser?
So he is in my Darnell Mooney category. Okay, which should already tell you he's a poser. You're on a Jacksonville team. You have a rookie quarterback. He's going to be inconsistent. He's going to change the person he goes to every week, which isn't different than a lot of long-term quarterbacks. But all right, his numbers: 9.4, 0.7, 6.8. Big week like Mooney, right? Then he's a hot pickup with 14 points, even though it seemed like a lot more, and then 6.5. So if you go 4 out of 5 weeks with less than 10 points, you're a poser. Even with Shark going down, we thought, right? And then he had that big week, and we thought, oh, he's going to blow up. He goes for 6 points. So I just don't see the consistency. I don't see, he's the kind of guy, maybe if you have an extra roster spot, way down on your bench, you pick him up because maybe there's a breakout at some point and he gets consistent. But for the most part, poser.
I have to agree. I
agree. The targets aren't there. The receptions aren't there.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So
yeah.
I think that does it, guys, for tonight. We've gone through all of our waivers. We talked about who's real, who's a poser. We answered a bunch of questions. Of course, like every week, we really appreciate the questions that we're getting. Kenneth, Matt, Brad, Bars in the Tuck, whatever that means.
Yeah, we never got what that meant.
Right, Max. We really appreciate all of your comments and listening to the show. And feel free to, during the week, if you have questions, go to our Facebook page or YouTube page, make the comments, and we'll answer them during the week. Guys, any final words?
Looking forward to another good game Thursday night. These the primetime games have been great. I mean, if you went to sleep after the first half last night, I am sorry. That was, and I didn't even really have any fantasy value in it. But man, that was a lightning show last night. That was awesome.
Yeah, It's been amazing. And for those of you that watch our show, not live, but are watching it recorded, comment and those comments go to our Facebook page. So we see them and we do respond. So we love that a lot of people are watching these shows after the air. We love getting those comments because we will respond as well. So, enjoy the primetime games, and we look forward to seeing everybody on Sunday.
All right.